from 938 Live.
This is Formula One driver Fernando Alonso.
Hi Singapore, I'm Jürgen Klinsmann.
Hi, I'm Martin Tyler.
This is Annika Sorenstam.
Hi Singapore, this is Johnny Wilson. You're locked on to the best in sport. Cheers.
You're listening to Singapore's longest running and only sports talk show on radio, 15 years and still going strong. A good Saturday to you and welcome to SportsZone on 938 Live. I'm Noah Tan and joining me as my co-host today is the Deputy Sports Editor at the Today newspaper, Phil Goh. And on the show today, we'll be discussing all the latest happenings in the world of NBA basketball. It has been a thrilling season so far with lots of talking points, great plays and even quite a bit of drama off the court. And it's been nothing short of exciting as well, but all good things must come to an end. And this season is set to come to a close in about a month's time. But the big question now is, who will be crowned champions? Can the Miami Heat accomplish the three-peat? Or will MVP Kevin Durant fire the Oklahoma City Thunder to glory? It's all to play for with lots of twists and turns in the season still to come, I'm sure. And joining us in the studio today to review the season as well as to discuss the ongoing playoffs and the upcoming finals is New York Knicks fan Matthew Ng. Welcome to the show, Matthew, and alongside him is Rohan Ishwalal, who's a fan of the defending champions, the Miami Heat. And finally, we also have in the studio Eric Ford, who's a supporter of the Detroit Pistons. Thanks for joining us on the show, guys. Alright, and now in the first half of the show, we'll be discussing the teams from the Eastern Conference, and in the second half, we'll talk about the teams from the Western Conference. So let's get straight down to business. Let's start with you, Rohan, and because you're a supporter of the defending champions, the Miami Heat, so we'll start from the top, shall we? Okay, now the Heat got off to a slow start to the season, but eventually came back to form and finished second in the Eastern Conference. So Rohan, what's your overall verdict on the Heat during the regular season?
Well, I think Eric's going to give me grief throughout this session. But
do you even know where Miami is?
Yes, I do actually. But I think you can't really expect them to keep up the standard like last season throughout the 4 years that they've been together. So, to be honest, I thought that they didn't have a good season as compared to the last, but still they ended up on second. The only disappointing part to me was the last few losses towards the end of the season that gave Indiana the first place, especially the loss to the Hawks at the end, because after that they totally gave up and they benched all their starting five. So besides that, I'm pretty happy where they stand right now.
Okay, now when people think of the Heat, their minds generally go to LeBron James. I mean, he's the star player for the Heat for sure. So how has his season been so far, and what about his partnership with Dwayne Wade? Some say James performs much better without Wade in the team, but do you think that's true?
Well, I think LeBron's year, as usual, has been great. He's been playing amazing since he's joined the Heat. His field goal percentage has improved again for the 7th straight year, which is quite remarkable if you ask Eric here. But he's taking more game-winning shots. He's getting more confident this year. He's hit a couple of game winners. He's more clutch in the fourth quarter, I think. But if you talk about Wade, I would say that he is better at the game without Wade because he feels like he needs to step up his game and carry his team through. Because when Wade is there, they are teamwork, and Wade gets like 20 points, which gets the win for them. But I think they complement each other well. And with Dwayne Wade there, there's always highlight plays like alley-oops.
So is he better with Wade or without Wade? I'm confused.
I think that you can't see it that way. They have to work together.
Hey, but guys, let's face it. The Heat, this championship-winning Heat, twice in a row now, were built around this group of three. It was supposed to be Wade, Bosh, as well as LeBron James. Right? It looks very much like James this year is the one who's doing all the work. I mean, where's that coming from?
Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah.
Well, I can't really comment there, but I think that the team has its role players as well. Like if you look at Ray Allen, he's really stepped up his game. Even James Jones is performing well this year. I know Bosh has been hiding in the dark, but yeah.
Eric, you look like you want to say something about Miami.
What can I say? Again, they're the best team that money can buy that isn't called Brooklyn.
I thought that was called Manchester City.
Well, yeah, best basketball team in the United States that isn't called Brooklyn. No, I give Rohan a lot of trouble because, again, he was never a Miami Heat fan until LeBron went there. as were most of the Miami fans, are not Miami Heat fans until LeBron went there. So, yeah, do I want to say something? We'll see what happens after this season when they can all become free agents, if I'm not mistaken.
Shall we move to Matthew for a while? Matthew, you're a Knicks fan. Gutted that they actually failed to even make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, well, they're 1 year older, so a lot more injuries this year. They lost a couple of good 3-point shooters, Novak, Chris Copeland. So, it was, for me, it was expected, the
Liar.
Knicks.
At the beginning of the season, you said they're going to make the playoffs.
Hey, that was James Dolan, not me. He said we could win it all. No, it has to do with they got a lot more injuries this year. They're older. They lost a couple of guys, and I guess at the end of the day, they're inconsistent. That's New York Knicks for you, right?
Carmelo can't carry the team. Just say it.
Carmelo can carry the team as long as
No,
he's got
can't
the right
I?
role
Well, I
players
agree
around.
with Eric on that one. I think they've been trying to build a team around Carmelo for years and years and years and years, and
Nobody's
they've not
ever
been
done
able to
that.
do it. And even that's actually stopped Steve Kerr from actually going to the team to coach the team under Phil Jackson. No,
Mr.
that's right.
Dysfunctional.
Yeah, so
We'll see. We'll see what happens in the off season.
I love your positivity, Matt.
Carmelo's going to come back.
Yeah.
All right, but so the Knicks. Mike Woodson was eventually sacked along with all his coaching staff. Did you think it was the right decision, or do you think they should have kept with Woodson?
I think it's the right decision because you got Phil Jackson, as a president. If Phil Jackson wasn't there, then I'll say it's a bad decision. Woody, you have to give him a better season because a lot of his players were injured, suspended, whatever. But with Phil Jackson in place, Woody doesn't make any sense. They need someone that would be willing to, in a way, listen to Phil's coaching philosophy to make things work. It's now Phil's team. It's not Woody's team or it's not Carmelo's team. It's Phil Jackson's team.
But Phil's the president, right? I mean, he's
precisely. I think he still needs to bring in that coach who can actually manage all the egos there.
Yeah,
right? So
what a lot of people are saying is, whoever he brings in is going to be a puppet for Phil anyway. Right. As a coach, coach is going to be mentoring whoever is going to be coming in as a coach. He's going to be, doing his triangle offense. Yeah, so
It's like Spoelstra in Miami.
Yeah, exactly.
So why didn't they just hire Phil as a coach instead of putting him as a president? Or
I think like all coaches these days, they just all want more power, and you have to be the president or you have to have a front office job to have more power, and to make personnel decisions. Basically, that's what it is at the end of the day. Phil's coached for so long, so I don't think he wants to coach, day to day. But I believe he does want to leave his footprint on the New York Knicks.
Eric, we know you have a lot to say, so we're going to try and come to you right now because you're a neutral fan. You like the Pistons?
I do. I was born in Michigan, so unlike Rohan, who doesn't know where Miami is.
Well, I guess sports fans in Singapore in general can't call any affiliation to any teams in England or anywhere else because we're so far removed from that. But we all try, so I think we've got to give them that. But you having been born in Piston during that era, I guess?
No, I was born before they were any good. But I grew up watching the Bad Boys, and then I was a big fan of the Chauncey Billup era teams. So again, that's my favorite team. Having said that, being a Pistons fan or being a fan of any Michigan team is quite challenging. So we have a couple other teams that we always like to pull for to have good luck, as long as they're not playing Detroit.
Speaking of challenges, talk us through what happened with Maurice Cheeks. 21 wins, 29 losses, and he got replaced by an interim manager.
I think Joe Dumars was just, he was desperate at that stage. He was trying to keep his job, so he made a crazy move to get rid of Maurice Cheeks. Maurice Cheeks is a good coach. I think he would have helped Brendan Jennings, but Joe did what he had to do, and now Joe's gone as well. So again, we'll see the direction they go under Stan Van Gundy.
You're listening to SportsZone on 938 Live, and today we turn the focus on the soon-to-be-concluded NBA basketball season. Now, if you've just joined us, well, we have 3 NBA fans in the studio, and they are Matthew Ng, whose favourite team are the New York Knicks, Miami Heat supporter Rohan Ishwalal, and last but not least, Detroit Pistons fan Eric Ford. So, Eric, we're still with you. So you mentioned Stan Van Gundy as their new head coach of the Pistons and the president of basketball operations. So what do you think of his appointment? Was he your first choice, or was there someone else you would have liked to come in and take over?
Ooh, good question. First choice? I don't know. I like George Karl. I think George Karl would have been a great coach. I think Stan Van Gundy will be actually better in terms of his personnel decisions. It's his coaching and his relationship with the players that I'm a little worried about. But I think he'll make some smart off-season moves, some smart trades potentially, and get the Pistons back into the playoffs next year.
How do you get past the fact that Stan Van Gundy has an uncanny resemblance to a certain porn star?
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what scares the relationship with the players. But see, behind the scenes, you don't have to look at him.
All right. Let's move on. Let's move on before I get taken off air. Well, so far we've discussed the fortunes of the respective teams for this season. It's time to talk about the rest of the teams in the Eastern Conference. Matthew, let's get back to you. Talk us through the top seeds, Indiana Pacers. They started the season strongly, and then they suffered a slip in form, a dip in form towards the end. They seem to be struggling in the playoffs, but they seem to have come right as well at the right time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. These are professional basketball players. They're gonna have their ups and downs, like anyone else, in their line of work. And so, it's just about making sure they peak at the right time. So they head out of the gate at with I think for a very good first half of the year, and then the second half, they sort of I don't know if they backed off, but they maybe got a bit of lag or whatever it was, but they seem to have got out of first round. That was a bit of a challenge for them. Second round, they sort of, I wouldn't say roll through, but they sort of handled Wizards quite well, and Wizards is an up and coming team, so that was a great, I think, momentum boosting for them, and it's, I guess, they're probably peaking at the right time to face the Heat in the conference finals.
Yeah, I think the measure of the promise of the Wizards is the fact that Kerr's heading there. Is that what's Steve Kerr decided to take up a job?
Kerr's going to the Warriors.
Warriors, sorry, it's Golden State. Yeah, I've got the W's wrong. Yeah. Yep. Rohan, let's come over to you and talk about a bit about the Chicago Bulls now. You surprised that they actually managed to qualify for the playoffs, especially when Derrick Rose missed almost all of the season due to injury?
I'm not surprised because I think they did the same thing last season. Derrick Rose got injured again.
So, no Lu Deng though.
Yeah, they didn't have Deng though. But still,
they didn't do too badly without Deng.
They didn't do too badly. I think they finished fourth. Was it fourth? Yeah, and they proved that the team is not just centered around Rose. Like last season when Granger got injured, the same thing happened. Like Paul George stepped up. This year when Rose got injured again, you saw Noah stepped up his game really a lot, and he won the Defensive Player of the Year. So with Thibodeau's coach role, I think he's really grooming the players well.
And you talked about Thibodeau, and but there's still some speculation over his future with the club. Although he still has 3 years left on his contract, but do you think he should stay with the Bulls, or should he try to move on to some better teams?
I'm not a Bulls fan, so I don't really. I'm enjoying their.
If LeBron joined you,
that's not. He'll never join the Bulls. But yeah, I think he's a great coach. He should stay there. Like you saw the season that Rose was in his top form and they were first seeds. So it shows the potential that the Bulls have. They are a threat. They were a threat to Miami, not anymore, because thanks to Rose's knees. So we shall see how the team does next season. If they don't perform well with Rose, then it might be a indicator for him to maybe move on somewhere else.
It's a shame about Rose because 2 seasons in a row he's suffered such bad injuries, and do you all think that he'll be the same player, or will he ever realize his potential? I mean, some athletes, they get serious injuries and they never be able to
Brandon
get over
Roy.
there.
It reminds me of Brandon Roy. Exactly what Eric said. I don't think he'll ever be the same player again. You look at Grant Hill, same thing.
Stoudemire.
Yeah, Stoudemire. These guys never will be the same. They rely on athleticism way too much. That now they're worried about injuring themselves yet again. So unless he changes his style of play, which is more slow down, more pound the ball inside, get in the post, be a better shooter basically from the perimeter. I don't think he'll be the same player.
Well, we're supposed to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Do you want to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks?
Who cares about the Milwaukee Bucks?
We will not talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Let's move on.
Sorry for Milwaukee fans.
Let's get
Very
back
nice
to
place.
let's come to you, Eric. Let's go to the Raptors. I mean, they've been
Who cares
quite.
about the Raptors? No, I'm just
Come
kidding.
on.
I'm kidding. No,
Raptors.
no, they were a good surprise this
Yeah.
year. I got to watch some of their first series against the Nets, and I'll be honest. Before watching that, I didn't really know anyone, but DeMar DeRozan is an up and coming all-star. I mean, that guy's a stud. That guy can play. And again, they've got a lot of young people. So again, I think they can continue to progress. Sad thing is, quite honestly, as a basketball fan, I don't get to see a lot of their games because for whatever, they're from Canada. They're not nationally televised as much as some of like the Knicks or something. So they're harder to talent spot as a fan.
And the same deal for Washington, maybe. I mean, do you have a word on Washington?
Washington, I have a bit more affinity to because I lived in Washington D.C. for 4 years. But so again, are they up in? I was surprised, to be honest with you. John Wall is great, Beal is great, but you look at the Eastern Conference. Most teams have a lot of good guards. There's a lot of good guards play. What surprised me with the Wizards was Trevor Ariza. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. He's never had a season like this. But again, I think they have the potential if they can keep those starting five. Two strong bigs. Nene had a great comeback season. He's always been a solid player. So again, I think they'll be in the playoffs again next year.
All right, and before we head to the news headlines, let's hear your thoughts on the teams, the playoffs. So the Eastern Conference playoff finals is between the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers. Rohan, how do you see that going?
All as if you had to ask.
Actually, I think that it'll be a challenging one like last year, but I'm praying for the Heat to win. If they get at least they split the first two games at Indiana, they should be fine. If they lose both, then I'll start to worry.
And
what's the likelihood of that happening, Matthew? For Heat to lose both games in Indiana?
I got a feeling that LeBron won't let it happen. LeBron this year has been unbelievable. As Rohan said earlier, shooting percentage up. He's ultra efficient. His defense is awesome. So I can't as LeBron always says, he's a student of a game and he loves reading. He loves the history. So I don't think he's gonna let the Miami Heat lose.
Eric, your take and a quick sort of series prediction?
The only way the Pacers win is if one of the key Heat players, not named LeBron, gets injured early. So if Wade goes down, or even the role player Chris Bosh, if they go down in one of the first two games, the Pacers will win. Otherwise, the Heat will win probably in 6.
So who will be key for the Pacers?
Key for the Pacers, David West always shows up. Roy Hibbert. I mean, the Heat don't have an answer for Hibbert if he plays well.
So Heat in 6, Matthew?
Heat in 5.
Rohan?
I say Heat in 7.
All right.
Alright, and that's all the time we have for you in part 1 of Sports Zone. Coming up after the news, we'll talk about the teams from the Western Conference as well as discuss the potential matchups for the finals. So stay tuned because it's all happening right here on Sports Zone, only on 938 Live.
Hi Singapore, this is Richie McCaw, captain of the New Zealand All Blacks, and you're mauling with the best in sports on 938 Live.
Welcome back to part 2 of Sports Zone on 938 Live. I'm Noah Tan together with my co-host, the Deputy Sports Editor of the Today paper, Phil Goh, as we get straight down to the second segment of the show. Now, if you've just joined us, our topic for today is about the soon-to-be concluded NBA basketball season. And in the first half of the show, we discussed the teams and all the various happenings from the Eastern Conference. So now in the second half of the show, I think it's only fair for us to take a look at the teams from the West.
Before we get there, let's introduce our 3 NBA fans. Just at the break, we managed to find out why they rip each other so much. It's because they actually know each other quite well. They're all in the same industry, and they actually have a job that most of us would die for. They work in the gaming industry, and apparently closely affiliated to one of the most popular NBA-related games out there in the market. So I really begrudge their knowledge of the game because they also spend hours and hours not just watching but start playing the game on consoles, and therefore
Don't
they
tell
know
our
the
wives.
players a lot better than I do. So let's welcome back Matthew Ng, who is a fan of the New York Knicks, I believe. Yes, and he's wearing a shirt featuring
Jeremy
one of
Lin, when
my
he played
favorite
for New York
players.
Knicks.
Yes, when Jeremy Lin was still playing for the Knicks. We also have Rohan Ishwarlal, who actually supports the Heat, or rather LeBron. And we have with us
Out, your secret's known.
Eric Ford, who we can't seem to actually keep him down because he's a real good man coming from the bad boys era of the Detroit Pistons. Let's get on with the show. I suppose we shall start from the top and go with the San Antonio Spurs. Rohan, your team faced the Spurs in the NBA Finals last season. Do you think San Antonio have grown a lot stronger this time?
I think their Game 6 loss to the Heat is still fresh in their minds. They really got that yellow tape out, ready to celebrate, but Ray Allen hit the tree. I think you all remember that. So I think it's fresh in their minds, and they're really looking for revenge this year. Tony Parker really wants to win the title for Duncan so that he can retire in peace. So, and they have been playing like real champions so far. Amazing regular season. A slight hiccup against the Mavericks, but besides that, they destroyed the Blazers to advance to the Western Conference Finals.
Spurs are the team to beat, or rather, they were the team with the best record. 62 wins, 20 losses. What is it that makes San Antonio so strong? I mean, Matthew, maybe you have an idea.
I think it's their whole entire system. So everyone from coach and the owners down. They really keep the team together. It's all about the culture at the Spurs, where they believe in the guys and they believe in their core. It's the core that really keeps them together. Popovich is unbelievable coach. Year in, year out, his teams are always very competitive, and he knows how to use his players to the best of their abilities. So I think a lot of teams can learn from that system. I think Thunder are trying to do that, and they're the up and coming Spurs, I guess.
All right, but Eric, San Antonio were given a huge fright by the Dallas Mavericks in the first round of the playoffs. The Spurs only narrowly edged the series 4-3. So what did that series tell you about the Spurs, especially in terms of their vulnerabilities?
I don't think it said much, actually. I mean, I think Dallas and San Antonio, Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, they played each other so many times over the last 10, 11 years. I think it was just a familiarity battle. I think San Antonio showed what they're really about in the Portland series. I think they're going to dismantle Oklahoma City, and I think you're going to see them in the finals.
And it's interesting you mentioned Oklahoma City Thunder because they do have quite a bit of quality players in their team, but one player certainly stands out from the rest. It's of course the MVP, Kevin Durant. So would you begrudge Kevin Durant his MVP award? I mean, he has been the best player, hasn't he?
He definitely earned it this year. I mean, it was close between him and LeBron. There's a reason that Kevin Durant is on the cover of NBA 2K15 next year, and it's because he did have the best season. I mean, when Russell Westbrook went down, he still he stepped up his game. I mean, the guy was scoring, 35, almost 40 points a game.
At one stretch, he was going 40 every game.
Exactly. I mean, that's hard to do. I mean, LeBron could do it, and the only other guy who could do it would be Kevin Durant.
Right, and Rohan, I saw his head shaking there because obviously you think LeBron deserves to win the MVP, no?
No, not this year.
Not this year,
definitely, I think Kevin Durant played much better, and even LeBron said it himself that Kevin Durant should be the MVP because he knows that I think he stepped down his game and couldn't keep up with scoring 40 each game. That doesn't sound like LeBron.
Yeah.
So the question is he the face of the next generation, or do you think he's like this is it? This is his defining moment, and then
he's going to be around. I've always thought he was going to break. I mean, he's really skinny and tall. He doesn't look durable, but he hasn't. I don't think he's missed a game in his whole career due to injury. So again, is he the face of the next generation or this generation? I mean, I don't know, but he will definitely be remembered as one of the all-time greats. And I have to say that, I mean, we've been fortunate. Some of the guys in our company have met him and actually say he is the nicest human being you'll ever meet in your life. He's just so down to earth, so cool, so humble, and you saw that in his MVP speech.
And perhaps that's where the emotional vote went with the MVP.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, that might not make him the face of the NBA because players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James, they all have a bit of flash, a bit of style to them. They're not as down to earth as Kevin Durant. Perhaps they're more suited to the high life, whereas Durant might be a little more
behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes. But
but 40 points a game will make you the face of a generation.
Yeah.
Is it fair that we focus just on him? I mean, there's Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson, Russell Westbrook.
Well,
hell of a player.
Serge is out for the rest of the playoffs, so
Right.
So let's not talk about him.
Westbrook.
Westbrook's a great player. Everyone complains that he ball hogs a bit too much. He should be deferring to Durant more. But as LeBron has showed, Durant can't win everything by himself. That happened last playoffs when Westbrook went down, and they lost in the conference final against the Spurs. So I believe Westbrook has a big role to play now, even more so. And if he can step it up, then they got a fighting chance against the Spurs. If he doesn't, then
He's got a chance of equaling a long-standing record, apparently. Something like playoffs. Over the playoff stretch, he scored 26 points, 8 rebounds, and some. It's actually
Oscar Robinson's old record, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the
20-something points, like 10 assists, and 3 steals or something ridiculous.
So I mean,
like
he's putting up a huge series. I mean, or rather two now, and it's going into the last one. Important player, I think, Westbrook. Let's get back to Matthew. Matthew, that shirt you're wearing.
yes,
Obviously, Lin doesn't play at the Knicks anymore, but he's actually in Houston. So there was a lot of excitement there as well in Houston when the Rockets signed Dwight Howard last year. Do you think he's done his best there?
I think unfortunately for Jeremy Lin, he joined the Rockets at the wrong time. Well, I would say, he joined first, and then James Harden joined, and then Dwight Howard joined 1 year later. But when they signed Jeremy Lin, he was supposed to be the face of a franchise. Him along with Omar Asik, and then Thunder put off that trade, and that brought in James Harden, so that took away from Jeremy Lin. So Jeremy Lin never got the opportunity to show what he did in New York, I guess. So to be fair to Jeremy Lin, he lost his opportunity to really show the world how great a basketball player he could be if the team was focused around him. So.
But at the same time, I mean, I counted the number of games that good games he had throughout the entire season. It was probably like 5, 3, something like that.
Yeah. So I think he definitely lost confidence. As I said, they brought in him, as a face of franchise. Then they took it away when they traded for James Harden. So I think that that put that destroyed his confidence a bit. Where he was no longer the face of franchise, no longer the focus basically of the team. So all the offense ran through James Harden as opposed to Jeremy Lin running the offense. And what he showed in New York Knicks was as long as he's dictating, or the offense runs through him, he can get it done. Of course, bar the turnovers, but
Yeah, I like Jeremy Lin, but I have a different opinion. I think people figured out how to play him. He was a surprise player in New York originally. Once people doubled him and focused on him, his game kind of went down. I think he's a very good player. I think he'll probably be one of those guys in a couple of years. Maybe he's like a top 6 man. He's a guy that gets the offense going right off the bench, which is kind of what he was starting to do in Houston. But again, I would not make him the focus of a team's offense.
But surely when a team like Houston bring in Dwight Howard, you would fancy them to actually make it all the way to the conference finals at least. I mean, they must have exited the series one stage earlier than we expect.
I don't think is that whose fault is that? Is that Lin's? Is that Harden's? Is that Howard's? I mean, I think if they can keep that team together another year, the chemistry there, the talent is there. I think we need to see a bit more from Parsons for them, to be honest, to get to the finals. But
I tell you whose fault it was. Damian Lillard's. They were 5 points ahead.
Yep.
And I don't know how they lost Game 6.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, and one of the we have to move on to this topic because it is one of the biggest topics that has hit the NBA this season, and I'm of course talking about the racist scandal that Los Angeles Clippers Donald Sterling caused because he was heard on tape telling a female friend not to associate with African Americans. And Sterling was eventually fined about $2.5 million and handed a live ban from the NBA for his comments, and he could soon be forced to sell the club as well. Now the latest updates are that he's going to challenge. He's going to try to sue the league. He's going to challenge. He denies making any mistake. But let's go with you, Rohan. What was your initial reaction when you first found out about this? I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
Are we? Oh my god, are we really gonna talk about this? I think it's a very sensitive subject, but yes, I was outraged. Saying this sort of thing in a league where the majority of the players are African Americans is just unacceptable. And my personal opinion is that racism has no place in today's world. So I really can't wait to see him get out of the Clippers and just have nothing to do with the NBA.
But Eric, so what do you think of the punishment Sterling received? Was it too harsh, or should it have been harsher?
Again, I don't know if there's any legal grounds to make it harsher, but I certainly think he got what he deserves once they get rid of him. I mean, I agree with Rohan. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as an American that there's somebody that high profile that did it. If there's any owner that was going to make a comment that stupid, I'm not surprised it was him, because he has a history of being a bit of a moron. Again, I don't know how you can make $2 billion, which is what he's worth, being that kind of a individual. But again, I'll save. Rohan and Matt have both heard my colorful commentary on him, which isn't appropriate for live radio.
But anyway, $2.5 million US. Chump change to a guy like him.
The bigger issue is forcing him to sell the team. They knew that a fine like that is a rounding error for a billionaire. But yeah, forcing him to sell the team, it's definitely the right move. I
have a feeling the NBA can't actually force him to sell the team. That's where the problem is.
I think they can. My understanding is due to the franchise agreements, the way things are written, that kind of behavior, if the rest of the owners really want you out, you can go out, and they're all going to vote him out. So I think they will get rid of him. I'm just afraid it's going to take a few years.
All right, we can't leave you out of this topic, Matthew. Now, Sterling did come out on an interview to make an apology of sorts. He admitted to making a mistake, but denied being a racist. He also went on to attack Magic Johnson. But what are your whole thoughts on this whole apology? I mean, do you think he was sincere, or was it just a PR stunt? Especially given the fact that now he's come out to say he's not made a mistake. He's going to try and counter whatever the league are throwing at him.
Well, I think he made a stupid mistake. He was stupid in the first place.
He is stupid.
Yeah, even for saying that, running a team which is predominantly African Americans and saying something like that, that's stupid. In regards to his apology, I think it's just it's a PR stunt. You heard that he's planning to sue the NBA because they're trying to force him to sell his team. So he has to come back and say I'm sorry, give an official apology. That's what it was, so that his lawyers then have evidence that he was supposedly apologizing for any wrongdoing he has. So I don't believe it's sincere. He just wants to keep running his team, keep making money. He's a businessman at the end of the day. Clippers make him a lot of money now.
Alright, now on that note, we'll be going for a quick traffic update, but when we come back, we'll continue our discussion about the current NBA basketball season. So time now for Traffic Watch.
Hey Singapore, this is former Liverpool and Real Madrid winger Steve McManaman. You're locked onto SportsZone on 938 Live.
Welcome back to the final stretch of SportsZone as we talk all things NBA basketball today with 3 local fans in the studio, so let's not waste any time and get right back into our chat. Now, before we went for Traffic Watch, we were talking about the controversy hit LA Clippers, and we'll resume our discussion in Los Angeles with the LA Lakers instead. Because what a sad season it has been for the once great Lakers. I mean, they finished second from bottom in the Western Conference, 27 wins, 55 losses. But then again, they had to do without injured star Kobe Bryant for almost all of the campaign. So, Eric, do you think the Lakers' downfall can be solely attributed to the absence of Bryant?
I don't think so. I think D'Antonio is a good coach if he's able to have the players that fit his system. You look at his success at the Suns. He had a bunch of young guys who could run and shoot the ball. He just didn't have that kind of makeup on this team. Paul Gasol is not going to run the floor full tilt and shoot a three. So again, I think he was the wrong coach with the wrong set of players at the wrong point in time. Clearly, not having Kobe is like Miami not having LeBron. I mean, it's clearly a huge factor, but it's definitely not the main factor.
And so the Lakers are now looking for a new coach following the resignation of Mike D'Antoni, and Bryant has expressed his interest in getting involved in the selection process of the new coach. Do you think the club should allow him to do so? Because players getting involved in selecting a new coach, it sounds like it's he's overstepping his boundaries as a player. Maybe Rohan, you'd like to weigh in on that.
I'm not a big Lakers fan, but I don't know
Unless LeBron goes there.
who could be the next coach of the LA Lakers. It's a big question, and yes, I think Brian should have some
Are you kidding me? You're saying you're gonna let a player have some say in how you run the team?
Well, they just gave him what?
Almost a max contract.
Yeah,
It was
almost a
20
max
million bucks a
contract.
year.
You know, how can you give a max contract to a guy and not
Have his
have
buy-in.
him
Have his
buying
buy-in.
into the coach they're gonna hire? That's just my thoughts.
he's the name of LA Lakers, so he should have a say, especially when he's has maybe 3 or 4
But
years.
is he
left.
worth it? At his
That's a
age,
different
having
The
gone
Lakers
through
think
it.
he's worth it. That's why they gave him an almost max contract. You know, he's on a downhill, but they still gave him a max contract. They built the organization around. Well, they're investing in him basically. That's what they're saying.
Well, I think,
now
yeah.
you're not going to let him have a say in who's going to be his coach.
I think
Doesn't
you
seem-
have to do it just to have his buy-in, just so that he's... Because if he shows up to play and he's telling the rest of the players, look, I back this guy, everyone else is going to kowtow to Kobe.
I think at this stage of his career, he's uncoachable.
All the more reason that you want him to agree to the coach.
I think paying max contract for Kobe Bryant is
I thought that was crazy, but that's a different question.
it's as bad as the decision to pay A-Rod 120 million over 10 years in baseball. But at least he gave him 4 or 5 good years before he moved off.
Yeah.
Well, crazy money, and only because USA has 250 million people, and therefore you've got a huge market, and you can afford to actually do or pay people money like this. Still. Let's get back to another team in the Western Conference, Portland Trail Blazers. I hate the team because they knocked out Houston, didn't they? I mean, so right now, and then they went on to play the Spurs and got showed up 4-1 there. Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
overperform?
Houston's definitely exceeded their expectations from the beginning of the year.
Portland, you mean?
Portland, yes, sorry. Terry Stotts did a really decent job with them. They're an up and coming team. Damian Lillard, awesome point guard. Point guard definitely for the future to build a team around. LaMarcus Aldridge, Nicholas Batum, Wesley Matthews. They got a Robin Lopez. They got a great team, great starting five. Now they need to work on their bench. That's where that was their downfall against the Spurs. Their bench couldn't match the Spurs bench. That's where they lost.
All right, and let's get your final take of the teams in the Western Conference overall. Rohan, let's start with you. Were there any surprises or shocks when you looked at the standings after the regular season?
I pretty much expected everyone that made it to make it, except maybe the Clippers and the Blazers were a bit of a surprise for me. I thought the Blazers would finish higher, looking at how well they started the season, and I was surprised that the Clippers finished third because they were playing okay, not
they
that
have some
good.
monster players in
They
the
do,
team.
but they weren't clicking. Maybe it was a new coach, Doc Rivers. I was surprised to see them finish third. I thought they would finish fifth. Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I actually think that the Sterling controversy actually spurred them through the playoffs to get as far as they got this time round. I mean, Eric, you reckon so?
Do I reckon so? What?
That actually did them some good more than detracted
Clippers
from
being
the
motivated.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they were pretty. I picked them to get almost where they did at the beginning of the season. They're a very talented team, very well coached. I think it was actually slightly a bit of a distraction. Maybe there was one game where it motivated them. I think overall it was a distraction, actually.
If you have to pick a team from the Western Conference, which players would you choose? Starting five.
Oh my goodness! So you definitely have KD. I think my point guard would probably be Tony Parker. Howard is just such a beast, even though I'm not a big fan of his. I think you'd have to put Howard in the center. Power forward is the tricky one. LaMarcus, maybe? LaMarcus Aldridge probably is your power forward.
What about TD? Tim Duncan?
Or Tim Duncan. Yeah, maybe Tim Duncan. I'm going to go with old school classic guy. Yeah, you're old. And as much as I don't like him, you'd have to put Kobe Bryant as your shooting guard, assuming he comes back to his old form. Because he just, whether you like him or not, he wins.
Matthew, you draw the short straw. We're going to ask you about coaches. Who would your coach of the season be?
For me, I have to go with Popovich. Awesome coach.
every year.
The Spurs will not be where they are without Greg Popovich. He's led the team, despite all the injuries, despite, having an aging roster. But, they're still the best team in the league.
The man's a media nightmare.
Yeah.
He doesn't give interviews.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why he's so good, because he doesn't focus on everything else. He just focuses
Doesn't
on his
focus
team.
on the noise.
Yeah, he doesn't focus on the noise. He just focuses on the team, getting his team to perform, and that's what a coach is supposed to do.
Alright, and so that was the review. Now let's look ahead to the predictions about the remaining matches in the playoffs. Rohan, I know you think the Miami Heat can do the three-peat, but why do you think so? Are they really looking like championship material this season? I mean,
actually, I'm not very convinced that they might win this year. They might make it to the finals, but looking at how every team is playing now, I would say that the Spurs have the most fire in their belly and are really looking for revenge. And it's Duncan's last championship before he retires, so I think and the game 6 again. So I want the Heat to win, but I think the Spurs will clinch this year.
You don't think you guys are going to end up meeting OKC?
I doubt with Ibaka's injury
He's
and how they have no big men anymore. Like Kendrick Perkins, I think he's too old and slow to be fighting against who the Spurs have. So it'll be a tough fight. Kevin Durant will definitely give it all he has, but I think the Spurs will win in 6 maybe.
do you agree with that, Eric?
I do. I think the Spurs will get through, especially with Ibaka out. With Ibaka in, it's a very interesting series, but I think the Spurs will get through the finals again. I think you'll have a repeat Heat Spurs.
It'll be Heat Spurs, and who will?
I'm going to pick the Heat just so that they don't win, because every time I go against them, they win. So I'm going to say the Heat will beat the Spurs, and I'm going to party like mad when the Spurs win.
I have that same thing happening for me in football. Matthew, your take on the finals?
Like Eric, but not like Eric, I believe the Heat will win. LeBron, student of the game, he wants that three-peat so badly. He's going to do everything he possibly can. And we've seen he's the best player in the league, best player in the world. I don't think anyone can stop him.
Okay, and what about you, Phil? Who do you think will win?
I don't know. I actually want to see OKC go through. I'm sick of watching the Heat. I'm not exactly a great fan of the Spurs anymore. So I like to see someone new going through, but I don't think that's going to happen this season. I mean, with all the things happening as they are right now.
Well, personally, I like the OKC because of Kevin Durant, and I think he deserves a championship. But I think the Heat will edge it again this time round, three-peat. I know Eric is staring daggers at me right now, but
I'd rather see two healthy teams going at each other than one team that's handicapped.
I think if the Heat go to 7 against the Pacers, and that'll be a brutal series. If that happens, then maybe the Spurs have a chance.
Alright, well, that's all the time we have for Sports Zone today. A big thank you to our guests, NBA fans Matthew Ng, Eric Ford, and Rohan Ishwalal. It's been a pleasure chatting with you guys. And keep it tuned to 938 Live for all your NBA basketball news and results during the weekdays. So till the next time, I'm Noah Tan.
And I'm Philip Gold. Take care and bye for now.